All right, welcome to another episode. Today we have the wonderful Brandi. She's currently focused on helping founders lead, scale, and decide clearly in complexity through a couple of her projects, namely the Aligned Authority and then her collective. So, welcome, Brandi.
Thank you so much for having me, Louise. It's such an honor and a privilege to be here. I love being able to speak volume to your audience and definitely gonna let you lead the way and be in flow. And I'm looking forward to the conversation we're gonna have today.
Of course, of course. Well, let's start there. I know that you're in a wonderful new season. So what's new? And tell me a little bit more about her collective and some of the things that you're focused on.
Oh my goodness, yes. I have been in a season of not just startup because this isn't the first startup I've been in. When we start up from a space of growth and expansion. It's not necessarily a bootstrap startup, it's startup from experience, which is so
Yeah.
powerful. And when making a courageous decision in a transition,
Mm,
after learning so much from my previous experiences and having the courage to exit a space that was so transformative and wonderful, and choosing to know that I had more in me, that it was my time to expand. And so making that transition in the last couple of months of really diving into my brands, not just my personal brand with Brandi Munguia, but the brands with Aligned Authority, as well as the Her Collective and curating these spaces. It has been absolutely incredible. Not on not just on the advisory side of being able to work with aligned, founders and entrepreneurs, but gosh, I just enjoy so much being an architect of experiences and curating, these spaces that are safety containers for high
mm,
performers. And so that has been incredible to get to do what I love and love what I do and to continue to do it in a way that's most aligned with me. So
mm. Yes.
it's been an incredible kickstart, I should say.
Right.
But I am loving it so much. It's been phenomenal.
I love that. And there's a lot of folks out there, I'm sure, where, I mean, maybe this was you and it certainly was me in the past as well, where we have a vision, we have a dream.
Yeah.
It's been kind of pulling at us or like tapping us on the shoulder, but maybe we choose safety or maybe we choose comfort, right? So I know we had this conversation before, but just for the audience, and I'm getting chills thinking about it, what was it for you that caused you to shift and say, you know what, let's go all in on my own or let's do this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is such a great question, especially when for you and I, we've played in some pretty big arenas with some titans in the industry, which is really incredible to have that experience and those opportunities. And when looking at it from the outside, some people will be like, why would you leave that? You're in such a huge arena. And when you know you're meant for more, when you know that you are a part of this next generation of people who are up and coming and becoming, the arena doesn't seem so constrictive at that point, right? Where there's a turning point where we decide that, man, is this arena incredible? And I've loved getting to expand in this space. And I know I'm meant for more than this. I know that there's a lot of power in creating something of your own while still contributing to other people's visions and contributing to the growth of other people, especially because we're strategic advisors. We get the opportunity to work alongside some incredible peers, partners, clients. And when we make that courageous choice to say, I'm going all in on myself, it doesn't mean that we're not appreciative of the experiences. It doesn't mean that we don't have gratitude for the opportunities and the spaces that we were in. It's that there's this voice inside of you that says, what would it look like for me to do this for me, by me, with me, for others, not just under the umbrella of working for someone else. And even in short-term or long-term contract spaces, it's with the empowerment and the confidence that you own that experience versus it being owned by the partners or the pieces that you've worked within.
I
Yeah, I
love
just
that.
enjoy that.
Yeah, and especially the keys there, right, is what I'm gathering is this idea of decision and courage and almost also self-acceptance, self-allowance, right? Like
Yeah.
allowing those gifts to shine.
Yeah.
So for you and for everybody else, what do you think you're really leaning on nowadays? Of course, it's still probably the courage, but for those who are maybe starting off and they're like you and they've made the decision, how to keep that momentum, right? How to keep
Yeah.
that going? What would you recommend?
Oh my goodness. You're asking great questions today. I think when we look at the discernment and your sovereignty, your courage always leads you to persevere. When you're in a space of startup and growth and alignment, really, it's the sovereignty, the self-trust, and your discernment to do the things that are most aligned with you, and a little bit of audacity. When I
Mhm.
say audacity, it's to truly own your worth, to own your essence, to own your greatness and your genius of what you are known for. And there were many things that I'm good at, when it comes to strategy and the things I'm passionate about and things I could teach. But when I really looked at the audacious goal, like the audacious goal of like, what do I really want for myself? That
Mhm.
was where my most expansive and most aligned clients came forward. It was this ability to know that I was meant to align with people that were um, able to see me in my fullness and want to work alongside me. In
Mhm.
a space of, I don't even like saying clients because it almost feels
Yeah.
like, oh, it's a client, but it's like really it's like partnerships. It's like
Mm.
aligned partnerships. And I genuinely enjoy this work that I get to do. And so when you're making that bold move or you're stepping into the fullness of what you're doing, we don't want to get trapped in busy work. We
Mhm.
want to align ourselves with the expansive clientele or the expansive partnerships that allow you to become all of you, not withholding parts of you, not holding back, but truly being all of you and what you're
Mhm.
capable of. And yes, can you create pieces that are quick wins? Sure. But I also want to encourage the listener who's like in bootstrap mode. Where are you allowing yourself to get trapped in the busy work? Because sometimes, and this is where, like, coming into this next iteration, when I looked at my business coming to life this time, again, I wasn't starting from bootstrap mode. Bootstrap mode is like, I got to build it myself. I got to do all this. I got to, like, grind. And it's like, what does it look like to make things easier for yourself through automation, delegation, and also stepping into the audacity of worth, right? When we say, like, when we're looking at investing, not
Yeah.
just in ourselves, but our partnered peers and our clientele
Yeah.
investing in us, holding yourself at that value when you have that acumen, when you have that accolade, really making sure that you're taking ownership of that in this
Mhm.
business and giving yourself the grace and space to
Mhm.
delegate and automate because there's no gold star for making things more difficult for
Yeah.
yourself. It doesn't make you more valuable to make things more difficult for yourself. And if you're not in a space to invest in those areas yet and you are building everything yourself, good on you. But also allow yourself to do your outreach, to do the work that will generate revenue for you versus busyness. You can
Mm.
have the most
Yeah.
beautiful funnels, the most beautiful lead magnets, but if you're not doing your outreach or you're not putting yourself in the rooms with your potential clients, my friends, you are leaving opportunity on the table there because you're focusing on busy work. And so it's okay to have tenacity to do the work necessary to generate revenue. And everything else will click in the background. You can always invoice without a pretty funnel, I promise.
That's true.
So, like, I
And
know that's like a quick tip, but long
yeah,
story long,
no,
Luis. Like, hopefully that
there,
answered your
yeah,
question.
there's a lot there for sure to unpack. I love that because, it's easy to get distracted is the bottom line. So then for
Yeah.
you or for the listener, how do you recommend they kind of snap back into place when maybe, by the way, the distraction isn't a tactic, but it's maybe the overwhelm
Yeah,
or the
yeah,
confusion
yeah.
or some of those doubts that may come in.
Yeah, this is wonderful. And I love that we have this deep understanding of the entrepreneurial, not just the entrepreneurial spirit, but the entrepreneur, because a lot of listeners, whether you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, okay, because a lot of us become solopreneur first before we become entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And when we're in the solopreneur aspect of it, where you're a sole proprietor, you're doing everything yourself, maybe you're contracting some people here and there, we often get trapped in the dichotomy of, well, I have all
Mm,
this work to do, and the work isn't actually moving the needle because you're convincing yourself in ideation or in getting stuck in like analysis
mm,
paralysis, as we say, where like I have to do it perfectly. But
yeah.
I'll tell you, like, and I know you can attest to this, Luis, as well, is like the people who take messy action win every time. The people who are willing to take the action before things are done, before things are perfect, they're
Mm,
the ones making the money because it
mm,
doesn't have to be perfect. It is going to change. In the last 3 months of refining since my current exit,
mm,
I looked at like, okay, this is what I'm known for. Then I was like, no, that
yeah.
doesn't feel right. And I could change it. And I changed it. And did anyone notice what it said before? No, but it was more clear when I looked at like, oh, this is how I would position myself
Uh,
clearly. And when you're coming out of certain roles, you can reference those roles. Like I can say I was an executive director for the last almost 4 years. Like I can say
mm,
that,
yeah.
but I'm not an executive director now. I'm a
Mm,
strategic advisor. I'm an
mm,
events architect. Like I architect events and curate rooms. Like when I look
mm,
at being a strategic advisor, it depends on what that founder, what that CEO needs.
yeah.
Instead of putting myself in a box, I'm not a coach. Like I don't coach. I can teach, I can facilitate. Yeah, absolutely. But when I'm looking at what do I want in authority, what do I want in like not just authority, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
It's almost like where do you feel most aligned in your
Yes.
authority? And that you can change it at any time. And I think some people get like they feel like they need to lock in, like, oh, I need to
Mm,
lock into this. And then they go all in and they start ruminating. And they think I have to go watch this, learn this thing first, and do this thing next, and do this thing next. And it's like, what would it look like for you to pursue the clients
mm,
fully, wholeheartedly? And I know you can speak so much volume to this, Luis, because this is what you specialize in, is helping
mm,
people close those clients and curate those clients effectively and nurture them and make them come in. They don't need a funnel to do that, right? It's
yeah.
like you could help somebody right now, Luis, close their first client without a funnel.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
It's
That's the thing.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too is inexperience. We as new entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or whatever the case may be, it's easy for us to believe like, well, that's what the gurus are telling me, or that's what I'm seeing so and so have, right? So what are
yeah,
some, I think maybe there could be a list there, right? Maybe, I don't know what, I don't want to say top five, but what are maybe the top things that and belief systems that people have? Like, I need this, I need that,
yeah,
like
yeah.
that are actually holding them back from the progress that
Yes.
they want to create.
Oh, I love challenging the listener on this, okay? Because it doesn't need to be perfect to launch. Where the launch happens is in your persistence.
Mm,
Don't leave money on the table when someone sends you a referral and you're like, but wait, I need a funnel first. They don't care. A referral is an introduction. They would be happy to have a conversation with you. And you're listening to one of the masters in the game of sales right now with Luis. Like, reach out to him right now. He will literally help you draft that first conversation with the referral and coach you on here's how you send an invoice from PayPal. You don't need to have the perfect LLC set up first. Yes, I do recommend to make sure you have your legal bases covered,
right.
but with PayPal you can protect yourself while all those things are clicking in the
Mhm.
background, okay? But at the end of the day, like there's no perfect business name. There's
Mm,
no perfect website colors.
yeah.
Don't get blinded that you have to have a perfect brand
Yeah.
when you are the personal brand. All the brand colors, logos, all that stuff comes to life later. You are your personal brand first. So there's that part. One, people get stuck in thinking I have to have a perfect brand kit in order to be
Mm,
valuable, and they're leaving money on the table when the referral is sitting right there, or like they have someone in their warm network they know they can help, and they're like, but I have to wait for a website first, or I have to wait for the perfect copy. It's like when I say copy, I say like all your written stuff, your website written stuff. There's no shame in leveraging AI. There's no shame in just leveraging tools like PayPal and like just using the band-aids will work in the beginning. It
mhm.
doesn't need to be a full wrapped up in a pretty bow in order for you to be profitable.
Yes.
And even then, when you feel like it's a pretty bow, you're going to unwrap that package over time and rewrap it many, many
Mm,
times. So not getting locked into perfectionism because your persistence is what creates progress. And I know plenty of entrepreneurs, and I know you know this too, Louise. The real bespoke entrepreneurs, they don't even have websites. They're like referral only. And they have conversations where they're like, where do I wire you? They don't care about a website. They don't
yeah.
care about a perfect domain name with your business attached to it. They're like send it cracks me up when I like talk to someone and they're like sending me their Gmail and it's like and
Mm,
they're like, so where do I wire transfer? Like they don't care to see your website. Like at
mhm.
the end of the day, like don't leave yourself and your acumen and your accolade on the table thinking I have to have a perfect pretty bow to show somebody before I can look. And here's the other thing. It's not about asking to get paid. It's
Mhm.
letting people know your investment. And I know Luis can coach you on this on how to get these language tracks down so that you feel valuable. But it's so powerful when you truly just allow yourself to go out there, enter the room. Don't wait till the pretty bow perfect package is done first. Enter the room with your ideal clients, introduce yourself, and open those conversations and let it naturally unfold the way it
Mhm.
will. And I know Luis will coach you on that right now, on like how to do that without a website.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
that's
Yes.
my biggest advice. I know that that may not have been like one or two or three things, but hopefully
Oh
that
yeah,
makes
a
sense for the
lot.
listener to hear that
Yeah.
imperfect action will get you paid before perfect action ever will.
Yes, yes. And another big thing there is what are we optimizing for? And sometimes what happens is that because of Instagram and social media, maybe people are optimizing for looking good instead of, to your point, being impactful, like closing
Yes.
clients and building a real business, right?
Yes.
So what beliefs or what identity should they step into or could they step into that will be a game changer? Is it like I'm impactful or like what is it that needs to
Ooh.
shift for them?
Oh, this is so good. I love this. I think the best identity you could step into is truly your authenticity, unapologetically who you are. I
Mm,
was just in a recent conversation with someone. I'm lucky to have known you for several years, Luis, and one of the things about me is I'm very emotional. Not emotional like I'm going to sit here and cry with you and bawl my eyes out, but I care deeply and people know that. And when I speak to someone, I speak to them. It's part of who I authentically am. I can see
yeah,
people and I'm not going to pretend I don't see them. And
yeah.
sometimes I voice that and that's authentic to me to truly connect with people on a level of this is how I am, and I'm not a surface conversation, and stepping into your authentic glow. What that is it illuminates for someone else. We are in a trust recession because everyone is trying to be to look a certain way instead of just being who they are. When you are authentically you, you will magnetically attract the right fit client to you. You will magnetically attract the most aligned, expansive people in your space when you are authentically you, unapologetically you, in your courage, in your perseverance, in your grit, your tenacity, your ability to problem solve unlike anyone else, and mostly your resilience. Every entrepreneur has a resilient story. That is why they are successful. Their ability to choose quick resilience. So when you're stepping into your own game, you're making the arena instead of stepping into one, and you're making it, owning that resilience that no matter what happens in the seasons of your startup. I say this and I'll say this, and I hope the person's leaning in a little bit
Yeah.
here, that you've always said, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you have been a listener, even yourself, Luis, myself included. We're the type of people who say, I thrive in chaos.
Mm,
So it might as well be the chaos of your success, my friends. It might as well be building something that you will choose quick resilience time and time and time again, because your courage has always gotten you across the finish lines of your life. And so it might as well be the chaos of your success that you're thriving in. Because success is chaotic. It comes with different seasons. It comes with navigating rejection, or learning how to communicate differently, or learning how to close the sales or the high ticket elements of your brand, negotiating deals, whatever it may be, allowing yourself to own your characteristics of who you are and who you're becoming. Because when you are taking yourself seriously and who you're becoming, and you're not dabbling in this, and you're taking ownership of who you are authentically you, while also becoming this highest version of you, it's absolutely expansive. Letting yourself become the version that holds the boundaries with people who don't have positive intention for you, by expiring loyalty to people who don't have positive intention for you, by owning and truly honoring who you are. And not negating that person, not rejecting that person, not leaning in and saying, I'm not good enough. Yeah, you're going to have seasons where you're scared. Find a mentor, lean into that person who is where you want to be, and heed their advice, not just let it roll off you. Listen to them. Find those mentors that want to see you truly win. And they will give you the playbook. Not only do you need to read it, you need to activate it. So it's
absolutely.
incredible what happens when you do that for yourself.
Yeah, especially there's a theme there around inner work
Mhm.
that I think you and I have a lot of experience in, and it could be the case that for some people they're in a stage in their life where things are good, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they want like the next level. So for those folks that are not starting or whatever, but they're in a good spot, what
Yeah.
would you recommend for them in terms of maybe some different approaches to keep leveling up and not staying stagnant?
Oh, this is so good because, you know, you've known me for several years, so you've seen that evolutionary
Yeah.
aspect. Like when you look back on like who we were a year ago, even how we commit to who we're becoming is the ability to quickly release who we are. And that doesn't mean releasing authenticity. That means releasing habits, behaviors, and beliefs that are not aligned with who you're becoming. And it's stepping into the fullness of how you are as a person, how you present yourself as the best version of you, how you show up as the best version of you. And even on the days when there's resistance, seeking to release and rest in those resistance points, because rest and release are not weakness. And when you hit seasons of resistance and pressure, there's, as business owners, we will navigate pressure and presence. And when we do that, we will be public figure, private life. And I talk about this in other spaces. This is one of my favorite topics when we talk about public presence, private life. As you're becoming, you're gonna release people and things and behaviors and all this stuff. That's private. And publicly, people will see that shift in you,
Yeah.
where they're going to be like, gosh, you've changed. Like, what is it? And it's the deep inner work that you do in the quiet that doesn't need to be showcased online. It's the deep inner work that's done in the quietness of who you're breaking down on the inside, not in a negative, just a release. And we've seen this in our own transformations, the release of who we were in survival mode and recognizing that we're no longer surviving, we're thriving. We have to allow that shift to happen when pursuing our success. That success isn't survival, okay? Yes, could it feel chaotic, but that's positive chaos, not deconstructive chaos. So
Mhm.
allowing the system and re-regulating your system to learn new habits and behaviors when we get excitement about a deal coming up doesn't mean we have to go into fight or flight, okay? Like that kind of stuff. And really being aware and mindful of how you behave and attuning to your body and those behaviors, how you start to shift the way you speak, not just externally, but internally, and pursuing the people that can show you new tools to add to your toolbox and not just put the tool in the toolbox and be like, yeah, I bought that. It's like exercise it, use it, start seeing how it impacts your life. And this is so much more than, face masks, bubble baths, and ice baths, okay? Like this is the deep inner work that has to be done to nurture that inner child, to nurture the adult you are, and to trust the adult you're becoming.
Mhm.
And it's this whole thing, not to go like deep into the rabbit hole with this, but it's the inner work that will get you to the outer outcomes. And that inner work takes that same sovereignty to trust yourself to build a business is the same sovereignty it takes to trust yourself to continuously heal. And it becomes into a space where we're not always healing. There's a shift that happens in our system. And it says, I'm no longer healing, I'm creating. And if some of these old patterns or beliefs come up, I got to quickly release that so I can step into the creative and who I am as a creator and not ruminate on the healer because
Mhm.
I don't need to be healing all the time.
Yeah.
Yes, can I reference my story, my past? Can I reference what has made me who I am? Yes, and I don't need to live there, right?
Absolutely. So let's say there's an entrepreneur, a business owner, they want to go big and host a really big event, right? Or workshop, conference, but they're resistant to it, right? What have you seen in terms of patterns in this idea of release, right? And maybe self-belief and self-talk. What self-talk do they need to let go of? Maybe it's
Mm,
around good enough or readiness, but
yeah.
what have you seen?
Ooh, so good. I think there's releasing unfair expectation on yourself. I think when we've grown up in environments where our success was negated, whether it was from a parent, a sibling, a family member, a peer, every time success was brought forward, it was negated somehow or comparative. And so as we grow in our success, we have to learn to not self-negate before we've even gotten started. And when we have the courage to do something big, like an event, one, give yourself enough runway and talk about it. Audaciously talk about it. Audaciously tell everyone about it. Invite them in. They won't know it exists unless you evangelize it. And you might be truly pleasantly surprised of how many people raise their hand and say, I want to be a part of this. How can I support? When people say to you, how can I support? Do not deny them that access to serve you as you have been in service, and it comes from reciprocity. And when you're building something that is authentically yours, you will have people who want to support you and lock arms out of love and care for what you're doing in your vision, and to allow them into that space and know that this is your season to receive care as well as giving it. And with events, setting an expectation of saying, where we can avoid, I guess, let down in certain ways. Maybe this might be a fear of someone listening. What if I do this event and nobody shows? Then you still get the experience of getting to tell that story one day. and you will hear it from many amazing entrepreneurs who've leaned into that opportunity and said, you know what, I'm just going to boldly do this event. And they're like, and one person showed up. And it's like
Yeah.
you will have that story for yourself. You should be bold enough to do it anyways. And that's where like safety comes in your self-trust. The outcomes come with your ability to pursue it. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Pursue
Mm-hmm.
it and see what happens. And whatever the outcome, have grace and space to do it again and do it again differently as you continue to learn the compound effect of your perseverance.
Absolutely. I love that. So then, for example, let's say that somebody does that and yeah, they only got a couple of people or five or a handful. I remember well, there's many stories, so we won't get into them, but yeah, like big names where they showed up and it's like, man, there's only a handful of people. So
Yeah.
what do you recommend as the best next step?
Ooh.
Possibly maybe leaning on support or what can ultimately shift them out of like the story of, oh, it didn't work.
Yes. Oh, so good. What if we reframed it to it did work because you showed up? And if one person showed up, man, did they get the best experience of their life, the most like heart to heart, one to one, best experience they could have had, probably changed their life. Wonderful. Even if no one showed up, you still had the experience of showing up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how you shift it the next time is it goes back to there's no shame in delegation or asking an expert for help. There's no shame. Anyone that's ever come to me that's saying, "Hey, I've I've got this idea for an event," and I say, "Great. I love this for them so much. And how can I support them with my experience to structure this event, to bring it to life the way they envision? Because maybe it's a new skill set they have to learn. I am 150% wanting to lock arms with them and teach them that skill set so the next event that they have is more fruitful than the last. It's never a failure. See, when we look at our businesses or our experiences, sometimes a branch comes out like events, and maybe it wasn't ready to be fruitful yet. It's still going to be fruitful. You still maybe need to nurture it for one more season. Then you'll start to see some fruit because maybe you didn't know which fertilizer to add to the root system. And that's when you invite in the mentor or the peer or you hire the coach that shows you the right fertilizer so that you can see the fruit of your hard work and labor. It doesn't mean that you didn't plant the tree. It means that sometimes you just need the advice so it can be the most fruitful. I'll tell you, like anyone that's listening, this is so funny. I got a great analogy for you on this part. Like so many listeners have probably tried to do a sourdough starter. And if you are impatient, you will lose this game. And I had to learn that I was like, I need to be more patient for this thing to freaking work so I can quit baking frisbee bread. I must have thrown away at least 10 frisbees before I had the freaking patience for my starter to actually do what it was supposed to do. Same with startup. We keep trying to rush it. We get that first loaf out. I'm like, dang it, it's a frisbee. Nobody came to my event. And instead of throwing the whole starter away, you get patient before you bake the next loaf. You get patient to see like is it enough? And then I made like 16 phone calls to my sister-in-laws who had successful, starters. And I'm like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing wrong with this dang starter. Like it's not bubbling. I don't know what I'm doing. Help me out. And they're like, oh, here's some heat source. Here's the type of flour you should use. Here's like throw half of it away. What are you doing? And at the end of the day, I was like, I have to throw some away. The same goes through business. Maybe there's something that isn't working that needs to be tossed out and then added to because it was a part that wasn't meant to stay in the business for it to flourish.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it took times to make these loaves, but the same goes for your business. You're going to run events and maybe one person comes and you're like, doesn't mean you throw out the whole idea of having an event. Bring in the outside, bring in the outside advice. Hey, I've seen you've had successful events. Can you show me? here's what I did for my event. Can you just take a look at it? Let me know where the gaps are. What could I do differently? Take their advice,
Yeah.
bake another loaf. And if the loaf rises a little bit more, maybe now you have 20 people who came in attendance and you're saying, listen, I actually want an event that has 1,000 people in attendance virtually online. Okay, great. Go find the virtual expert. Find the people who will help you not only attune your startup, but will help you get the result you're looking for so then you can replicate and duplicate and keep it going. And that's the power of leaning into support when you're trying something new, and to allow yourself the grace and space that when your impatience tries to come up, you don't need to throw the whole thing away. You just need to be patient to wait and start working with the things that will help it grow.
100%. So beyond patience and maybe coachability, some of those concepts, what else? What else can really empower an individual to allow themselves to get out of the way and move forward? Like what else?
Oh, oh, this is great. You're asking the best questions, and it's because I know you know deeply the entrepreneurial heart. Oh, I just love this so much, Luis. Okay, so to get out of your own way takes true self. No, you're not gonna like to hear this. You're not gonna like to hear this. The listener's not gonna like to hear this. You gotta stop being your own bottleneck, man. You gotta be able to trust other people that you don't know all the answers. That doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It means that you're smart enough to give that task or that ability or that bottleneck to someone else where it is their zone of genius, whether it's a consult, it's a short-term coaching, or it's hiring someone within your business. You have to be able to relinquish control in certain ways. And some people are cringing when I say that. I have watched business owners who are too busy still being an operator, and that is what is preventing them from being a 7 or 8 figure earner, because they're too much control over operating, because they feel like if I give this operation to someone else, they're not going to care about it as much as I care about it. And it's like, find the operators so that you can be the owner. That is the most difficult bottleneck I have watched harm business owners, because they're too afraid to relinquish control to someone who may actually be able to do it better than them.
Absolutely. So would we say that's partially ego, partially lack of trust?
Mm,
What should they be aware of?
I think there's two parts to it. I think part of it is ego because they feel valor in bootstrap.
Mm.
The other part is fear of losing what they have, fear that if they give it to someone else, they might break it or lose it, or they'll lose momentum. And that could be true temporarily. Because what do we know about ourselves? Quick resilience. That's what we know. That if you give it to someone and they break it, you can fix it again. It will recalibrate, it will come back. And you can still trust someone again, to give yourself the grace to trust someone again down the line, and to create SOPs that are truly like your manual from your heart and soul. That is, this is my SOP. And for those listening, like, what the heck's an SOP? Standard operating procedure. That if you create the playbook that someone could follow step by step, should they click into your business, could they do it with your same essence? Yes, if given the correct guide. If you just bring someone on and assume they're going to know, they don't understand unless you show them what to understand and how to execute and how to understand from your essence, and to make sure that they have the same heart and care that you do and buy in. So pay them appropriately, help them feel purposely driven in your business, that they have a purpose there other than just fulfillment. They have a purpose there because they're giving a part of their essence in, and they're feeling this cohesion and building this vision with you, not just for you, but with you. And when we trust people with that, and we give people and compel them in their zones of genius to execute, then you might find some of the best operators for your business, and trust yourself to find that talent and give them a chance to shine. And it comes from a space of grace and trust and patience is a word that comes forward in that. The patience to let someone calibrate. That when you're teaching someone to hold trust in your brand, hold them at a high standard as well. And watch what happens when you nurture and mentor someone to operate your business with you. Because you can get again some beautiful operators if you're willing to train them effectively so that
Yeah.
you can be the owner and let them operate within the
Right.
brand.
Right. So now we're on the concept of leadership. What makes a great leader from your experience, especially as a director and all these other things? Like,
Yeah,
what makes a
yeah.
great leader in that case?
Ooh, man, this will always be unique to each person listening on what they feel is a good leader. And in regards to what I've felt in leadership, what makes a good leader is not only compassion, but
Mm,
contribution. A leader that is willing to be in a state of contribution to a team when they are not afraid to step into roles where there might be gaps temporarily. Because just like we're coming off this conversation of a leader that's saying, I need to give up control.
yeah.
And if there's any lapse, I'm also willing to jump in. I'm never above helping my team. I'm never above any role in my business. That because a lot of owners were operators, they have to be reminded that they can always reach back into the operation at any time and to humanize the experience of your team. Good leaders hold that space with love and compassion, not empathy, right? There's a difference between empathy and compassion. Empathy is let me absorb this for you. Compassion is let me get you through this so that we're not going to ruminate on these seasons, right? Because you're going to have times with team members where maybe they experience something that is so heartbreaking and so hard to watch. Hold that space for them, humanize them, but also hold them accountable. Hold them accountable because you can have compassion for someone without letting them, harm your business. And sometimes you have to be able to look at things objectively versus emotionally as leaders. And good leaders can be objective and caring, and good leaders have to make tough choices sometimes, and holding someone accountable to that isn't bad leadership. It's where accountability, sometimes people have to learn the consequences of their own behaviors. And as good leaders, we hold them accountable, and we also hold space. We hold space. I'm always willing to contribute. I will hold people accountable for circumstances and situations that are up to them to shift. And I will lead with compassion and love without letting people become complacent. And there's a driving force that comes with leadership that is leading by example.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, because and I've been, I'll say it, I've been guilty of using a word, I don't even know if it exists, but transactionalizing
Mm,
a
mm,
role.
yeah.
Like for example, maybe an intro role. Like for
Hmm.
example, setters
Hmm.
or roles that let's just be honest, there's a lot of availability if you want to use that word. There's a lot of right, there's a lot of potential for churn
Hmm.
in a good
Hmm.
and bad way.
Yeah.
So how does like how would you recommend, for example, me, right? And I've naturally been working on this, but how would you recommend someone like me maybe take that a notch above and not just maybe leave it as well they're just this or they're just that in terms of
Right.
part of a team.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a great question. Yes, there are some roles that are transactional roles because maybe they are hired for short term and it's a contract, so it is transactional. However, when we look at performance-based roles, there's an ownership piece that if someone is lacking performance, sometimes it takes a little bit of mentorship to get them on the other side of their lack of performance. And if that is something that they ultimately are not able to fulfill, then there's consequence to those behaviors. And sometimes holding someone to their standard and consequence comes forward, that's on them. And us being the leader that holds the standard of that isn't a bad thing. It's also where, some people really have their own deeper inner work to do before they're ready to integrate in a team. And sometimes it takes that quick awareness and objectivity to be able to look at someone and objectively say, this person is not adapting to the mentorship I've tried to provide, is not adapting to results, is not adapting to follow through. And I have to make an objective decision to let that person go based off of lack of performance. And that actually falls on them because you've laid out the SOP of this is what's necessary to operate at a high level. I've given you the playbook. I've given you the coaching. I've given you the mentorship. I've given you the grace. And if you are not following through and lacking the self-awareness and ability to um, listen, I guess is the word, like for lack of a
Right.
better
Yeah.
word, then there's consequence to that behavior. And sometimes by implementing the consequence actually holds the standard that that behavior will not be tolerated. That doesn't mean that
Mm,
you don't care about the person, but that
yeah.
behavior itself is not going to be tolerated in the standard of the brand. And it's just a part of that tough love part in business that's hard to navigate
Yeah.
sometimes. Like you can be a kind person and not lay on your own sword, I've
Yeah.
had to coach many founders on making tough choices with employees. Specifically, sometimes those employees are family members that were
Mm,
meant to be a temporary fix that became a long-term game, and that person no longer
yeah.
held the same high standard they might have had in the beginning. And so they have to restructure their role or remove them from the business. And sometimes that's tough love and ways that we have to be objective within our business. And you don't have to lay on the sword of your business in the name of someone's lack of performance because you want to be the nice guy.
Mhm.
In business, the nice guy can get far, but doesn't win if you're laying on your sword all the time.
Mm,
And you can be kind and still get paid. You can be kind and still make tough choices. And people need accountability, and sometimes that's within the tough choice.
yeah, absolutely. And a big piece too is just being very clear on expectations, expectation management. So, for
Yeah,
example, right, let's say you bring on because now on the flip side, not just management, but leadership in terms of influence, in terms of like your own clients. So let's say,
yeah,
for example, you bring on a client that you thought was going to be amazing, but you need things from them and they're not providing them for you.
yeah,
So then you
yeah.
kind of feel like, oh man, I'm a little bit handcuffed.
Mm.
What would be your advice there for entrepreneurs who find themselves in a situation where they may need to fire a client?
Ooh, this is the man, you're asking such good questions today. We might have to do a part two on this one, I'm telling
Yes.
you. But I'll tell you like the thing about clients, and this is where like when you bring a client in, they're a part of your brand in those moments. And so if they don't follow through on the contractual agreement and you're not able to fulfill on the contract and it's creating resistance, you give them those warnings. You show them like, hey, I've followed up with you multiple times. I'm unable to fulfill on this contract if you're not compliant with the needs of the space, and letting go of a client based off of their lack of. I would rather refund a client than ever have to navigate their resistance and then have it come back and blow up on my face because they want to be a grenade type of client, right? It's like with the grenade, you pull the pin and you're like, is this going to blow up? Because I'm watching it and I don't know if it's going to blow up. And if a client is someone who is expecting that because they cut a high check for you and they're not willing to do the work,
Yeah.
you made clear from the beginning that it was a done with you service, not a done for you service. And even in the done for you, if they're not clicking in the pieces that you need for them, then you have to say, you know what, based off of our experience thus far, I'm going to go ahead and refund prorated based off of the time we spent together, because without these pieces, without this fulfillment, or with this resistance, I just don't know if this is a right fit for both of us. And that shows more integrity than trying to make it work. Because
That's
in
true.
when you also hold yourself at a high standard, your clientele will either meet you where you're at, and you have to keep reminding them that they got to meet you where you're at. You're calling them up, you're not calling them out. And if they're not willing to be called up, and they're not willing to fulfill on the contract agreement, then you are fully compelled to release that contract and give them a refund,
Yeah.
or not, if that's what's in the contract. But at the end of the day, hold yourself at the standard and integrity of your business and your brand, and a client will learn that their behavior won't be tolerated in that space. If you hold yourself at a high standard and you fulfill on that standard, a different level of respect comes to play there when you really do hold your standard. It's a part of your integrity. Hold
Mm.
firm on the line of your integrity. No client is ever worth the check if they don't respect the agreement.
Yes, and then on the flip side, and we'll probably end on this, when when the situation occurs where it's a perfect client, right? But then they something comes up, usually it'll be fear, and then they request they blindside you and they request a
Mm,
refund or
yeah,
or something, right?
yeah.
How do you lead through that and how do you manage that as well? Because it's also easy to be like, it's fine, like give up on them. But
Mm,
also, if they are a perfect client and you can really help them, there's also this opportunity and potential to coach
yeah,
them and
yeah,
help them. But what do you think?
yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I think where we will always lead with curiosity. And self-discovery too, because if someone's like, this isn't working for me anymore, really lead with curiosity. Sometimes it's an underlying issue that's happened in their personal life, and maybe they have come across a financial piece they're not revealing. I would rather do the right thing by the client and refund them and get them through their season of whatever they're navigating in their finances, because I know God will give it back to me tenfold. Like at the end of the day, I'm going to do right by the client, but I will lead with curiosity of what could I have done differently to make this go differently. If there was a lack of trust, or something I've done or a team member has done, how can I make that right so it doesn't happen again, and that I make it right in the moment also. Always being curious for the feedback helps to improve the self and improve the business, and to be curious on humanizing the client too, on what they may be navigating, and to meet them with grace. They may not they may have a lot of pride or embarrassment of what they might be navigating, and um, doing right by them not only builds the trust, but it can also bring the referral in the future, or them coming back into the space in the future when they're ready. And when you do right by someone, God will always do right by you.
100%. Well, with that said, I love that. And how can people get more of this? Because there's been so many insights. You've shared a lot. You've been very generous. How can they connect with you, your brands, or ultimately possibly work with you?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm so happy to serve in this audience, and I hope that our discussion today really resonated with any of you listening here. And if there's anything I can ever do to support you, you can always find me on social media. You can go to my website, brandymunguia.com. It's just my first and last name.com. And all of my socials there, my emails there. I'd be happy to connect and serve you in any capacity that I can. And thank you so much, Luis, for trusting me to come into your space and share
No,
some of
thank
my
you.
story and insights today. It's been a privilege to get to be a part of this with you. And thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Appreciate it.